Welcome to the Pongcast, brought to you by the Pong-A-Thon. We are a movement that exists solely to see the issue of modern-day slavery end. Right now around the world, there are estimated to be more than 40 million slaves, and we believe this is not okay. We fight modern-day slavery by creating awareness of the issue, but primarily through the fundraising of monies that goes to support 7 incredible organisations that tackle the issue of modern-day slavery in different ways. We raise funds through the marathon table tennis events, or what we like to call Pong-A-Thons, where communities all across Australia and the US will engage and play table tennis together, some for 2 hours, some for 24 hours, to raise money to fight modern day slavery. Since 2011, we've raised nearly $2.7 million, and we're very proud of the contribution that we have made in this global fight. In our episodes together, we will explore what's happening in the movement, as well as have incredible interviews and conversations with our partner organisations where they discuss the impact that is happening on the ground. We hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the 8th, believe it or not, 8th official episode of the Pongcast. You're here with me, David from Pong HQ, and we have a very special guest today, Adrian Rowse, our venerable founder, is here to chat with us today. How are you going this lovely Monday morning, Adrian?
Really good, David. I might need you to explain the word venerable to me, though. I'm not sure that's in my vocabulary. So.
Oh, gosh. Well, we better quickly Google it. I hope it's good. Accorded a great deal of respect, especially because of age, wisdom, or character. So there you go.
So is it age, wisdom, or character that you're...
All of the above. Hey, but
it's age. It's age.
Pretty fitting. Come on, you got to admit that's a pretty good word for you. So we're going to spend some time with Adrian. Most of you probably know Age is finishing up with us, so give us a bit of time this episode will afford us time to just explore a little bit more about what's ahead for you, Age. And yeah, we've got a great episode. We've got some impact reports to share about, but really the main event is to just have a conversation, get some understanding of the journey thus far and what's ahead for Age. So I think we've got another 4 weeks, Age, before you formally officially finish up with us. So it's amazing. The year's gone by so quickly. I can't believe it's already halfway through. What's the rest? What's the next 4 weeks look like? Give us some context of what we're going to be up to, because I'm going to be doing some of it as well.
Yeah, well, I think the most exciting thing is that yourself, myself, and Matt are heading over to Southeast Asia, which, it's exciting to be heading anywhere in this day and age, but going to see partners, and I guess in one sense to celebrate with our partners. We're not going to see all of them, but particularly the ones that we've been with for the longest, and that are perhaps more the grassroots partners that we have, going to celebrate with them what's occurred over the last 11 years, which we might call the first chapter of the Pong, perhaps.
Yeah.
And also going to spend some time with them so that I can say goodbye, in a sense, not that I'll never see them again, but also so that we can continue to ensure that there's really good relationship, particularly with yourself, David, as you kind of take that leadership role with the Pong moving forward. So just to be able to spend some time together and for you to get to know those key people a little bit more and see the work firsthand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's going to be really exciting. I think you bang the nail on the head in the sense that it's good to just be traveling anyway. Let's be honest. Things are finally opening up. And in the logistics of getting the trip organised, obviously there was a few bells and whistles to it, but it seems like it's getting easier. You don't need as many documents and bits and pieces in terms of vaccine certificate. You still need quite a bit, but thankfully the trend, I think, everyone, is it's getting better. So no, absolutely, really looking forward to spending time with our partners further. Just seeing, as you said, Age, seeing the work firsthand. Very, very exciting. And obviously, for the benefit of our listeners and everyone in the Pong movement, there will be a rich tapestry of stories that we'll be able to bring back. So yeah, really excited, Age, to obviously visit our partners and see the impact. And I guess talking of impact, we've got some new reports that have come back from our partners. So really quickly, just to give you guys an update on what's happening right now. This is by no means the only impact. It's just what we've got, what we've collated. And I guess, Age, it would be fair to say the theme for the recent reports is really around prosecution, seeing the perpetrators get convicted and see jail time, which is really important for justice for those that have been abused. So 3 cases that are currently, 2 that have completed. So they've come to a point of conclusion. I'll share the details of those 2 cases, as well as one that's kind of underway. So the 2 that we've seen convictions. One in Cambodia of a pedophile from not Australia but another country that abused 24 children over 2 years, was convicted. And some of the people from one of our partners, they were a part of that process of testifying and seeing that conviction come down. And because he's a foreigner, he's got a sentence in Cambodia, and then he'll be deported back, and he won't be able to enter the country again. So great result there, and great for Cambodia as a jurisdiction. It's harder than other areas to see convictions like this, so that's really, really great to see. The other conviction that was affected was in South India, in Chennai. So this is a quite specialized or different is a better word, case, in that it involved a minority group. So I guess the indigenous populations. And this was a case that actually occurred some time ago, Age. So 29 people were rescued out of slavery. So, they're well and truly on the path of restoration and healing. But the actual case, there's sometimes a bit of a lag of seeing justice occur. And this court that's specialized for the more vulnerable peoples. This was the first time that we saw a conviction that was handed down. So 7 years of a rock quarry, so bonded labor. So the owner of a rock quarry got 7 years, a bit of a tongue twister, that rock quarry. And 7 years you might not think is too long, but this was actually handed down to the son of the original perpetrator. The original perpetrator died, and then they were still able to pass the sentence because the son was still involved. He was also a guilty party. So that was, there was 12 years worth of intel and preparation if you take it from end to end, Age. So massive lead time. But this is the kind of work that we're empowering, which is awesome. And then thirdly, there's one case that is happening right now in Thailand involving a coach who abused some boys. And he's been arrested. The boys have been removed from harm, and that is now currently ongoing. So that is, if you're a person of prayer, that's certainly something to be praying for, that justice is served there, and that, bravery and courage for the boys that may need to testify. So another great result there in terms of seeing the arrest take place. And then, Age, we get some numbers because issues of privacy in that. There we've seen 5 new cases of people being removed from harm or rescued, which is amazing to see. And that's just over in the last 2 months. So, and that's just from one of our partners. So, incredible results across the board. And again, this is a very small slither, but this is the kind of work that you're empowering through your ponging. So be really, really encouraged by that. And obviously, as more reports come in, we will share those, whether it's on Pongcast or social media. So, All right, now on to the main event. Great, really looking forward to catching up with you, Age, and chatting. As we said at the top, obviously this is the end of chapter 1 of the Pong. I guess very, very bittersweet because...
Come on, cue the violins.
That's it. This is something that you started, mate. This is your baby. Without you, the Pong would not exist. So my understanding, I've only been around for about 3-4 years, but my understanding, it started 11 years ago. You started with one event, then the following year another event, then it went to 5, then it went to 24, And then from there, it just kind of exploded. So before we explore that growth, because I'd love to touch base on that, take us back to the very start. Like, what was the initial reason for starting the Pong? What was where were you at in life? Give us some context to that. And yeah, why did you start that very first event? And why table tennis of all things? Maybe you might not know the answer to that question, but it'd be fun to understand the origins of this quirky idea that we now obviously love and hold dear to our hearts.
Just the answer is, why not table tennis, David?
Fair enough.
Why not?
Fair enough.
No, it's not really the answer. I guess the broad context is that I did a 10-day exposure trip to Thailand in 2010. And that was really just out of starting to hear about the issue of trafficking and modern day slavery, and recognizing that it was something that was, horrendous in this day and age, that people can be, slaves in the world. That just messes with my head. And when I started learning about that, I guess my heart kind of got caught by it, and wanting to be a part of the solution. So I went on an exposure trip to learn some more and to see what was happening in Southeast Asia. And after that trip, I just spent a little bit of money to both of the organizations that I'd connected with on that trip, just thinking that was my part in helping them further their work and to end slavery and exploitation. I was running another organization at the time, so I didn't have the scope for anything beyond that. But about 18 months later, I came to a really difficult season in life. My marriage of 10 years came to a close. And my job, the organization that I was running, also came to an end. And I was pretty lost and pretty depressed and not sure what was next in life. Life kind of hadn't turned out how I'd imagined it was meant to. And so I decided to reach out to those organizations that I'd been just, sending $20 a month to, supporting their work for a couple of years, and ask them, can I come and volunteer for a couple of months? Right. I just needed to do something that was not about the bad stuff that was happening in my world, so that I could focus on someone else and get some perspective. So I went and volunteered with those two organizations. But before I went to volunteer, I decided to just do a little fundraiser. So the first Pong event really was just a one-off fundraiser to raise a bit of cash and take it over to help those two organizations further their work a little bit more. So I don't know where table tennis came from. There's a long story that I won't share today that kind of connects it to trafficking and exploitation. Okay. Yeah. But I just gathered a few mates, 15 or so guys, family and friends, and the idea from somewhere came, let's do a table tennis marathon. Yeah. And it just worked. We raised $10,000, which was as much as we were able to raise in a fundraiser in Victoria without an official fundraising permit. Right. And we just saw guys really connecting with the issue as well. It was both fun, but it was also helping guys to learn about, this injustice in the world, and helped them to feel like they could be a part of the solution to it.
Powerful. And I think it's fair to say, Age, that DNA has continued to exist, throughout its existence, right? The connection of being able to feel like a part of the solution through the simple act of playing table tennis. I think it's pretty special. So you obviously went back, you came back, you did another event. And then at what time did you realize, maybe there's something in this?
Well, I think at that very first event, I realized there was something in it.
Yeah.
There was this one guy there that was not connected to the church or any, it was mostly Christian guys that were involved in this first event.
Yeah,
and
sure.
This other guy was a friend of a friend and kind of came along. And
so you didn't know him?
No, I did. I think I might have met him once.
Okay, but he wasn't there to support you necessarily. He was just there to...
No. He just came because a mate asked him to.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is how the Pong has kind of grown. But He said to me partway through, like he said, it just feels so good to be doing something for someone else for a change instead of, in his words, instead of focusing on my own shit all the time.
Yeah.
And I realized in that moment that this was something that everyone could be a part of if it became a thing. But then I was off to volunteer, and that volunteering turned into 2 years working as the director of one of those organizations. So I really wasn't in the headspace of, turning the Pong into anything. It was just a one-off. And then I was in the mix of working in the region.
Was the original intent to be there for 2 years, or did you just stumble into that?
No, I'd just gone to volunteer for 2 months, and one of the organizations I volunteered with, they clearly needed someone just turning up every day for more than 2 months, and someone with some experience in working with young people. So it kind of seemed like the right place at the right time, I guess.
Yeah, got it. So you obviously finished up that 2-year season. You came back, and then was it more or less organic in terms of just, this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to build this thing because there's obviously something clearly here. Is that kind of happened, or?
Yeah, I mean, even the second year, like I was working in Thailand, and I got some emails from guys that played in the first event saying, when are we going to do the Pong again? Or wasn't called that then, but and I was like, oh, these guys want to do it again. I guess we could raise some more money for the organizations that I'm still working for. Absolutely. So I flew back for 5 days. We did no promotion. We just said to those guys, invite whoever you want to sign up to play. And I think we had like 60 guys play that next year.
Right.
And but again, like I wasn't then thinking this is going to be something that we do every year. I was very focused on just trying to survive in crazy work environment in Thailand.
Wow.
And it was only when I came back to Australia in mid 2013 that I thought, maybe I'll see what we can do with this table tennis thing and whether we can actually grow it. Because I'd really kind of gotten 2 years working in Thailand with young people every day who were essentially selling themselves to survive. Like that caught me to the degree that I realized that I couldn't come back to Australia and just get a normal job. I wanted to do something to help organizations who are great at working with these, vulnerable young people. But maybe they weren't so great at fundraising. And, I'd kind of stumbled on this thing that seemed to work. So what if, I treat this as my job now and see, it was an experiment from there.
So good. So obviously going from one event to 24 to 50 plus doesn't just happen by accident. So just walk us through like what you did in those early days to build it and get that kind of groundswell of movement to seeing 20 plus communities, $100,000+ raised.
Yeah, I mean there are clearly a lot of elements, and there's people that I should mention that I won't be able to mention for time's sake today, but that came alongside and got involved. But initially when we went to 5 venues, it was just really people that I had strong connection with in different parts of Melbourne that basically put their hand up with a bit of prodding from me to run an event, to start their own event. But from there it was really to be honest, it was getting in my little black Toyota Corolla and driving up and down the east coast of Australia several times over a few years, and a few trips over to SA and WA, and just a lot of coffee with a lot of people, sharing stories of my experience in Thailand working with young people who were in these extreme settings of vulnerability, and just asking people, hey, would you consider running an event like this in your church, in your whatever setting that you're in? So it was really just grinding it out. And people were interested in this kind of injustice, but somehow the table tennis element of it kind of offset the heaviness of the issue and brought some fun and quirky kind of factor to it.
Yeah.
So, like people were open to, I think, running an event because the actual event is fun and it builds community, and there's all these edges to it that are really good for a community to run an event. But it also then impacts this horrible injustice in the world. So there's a feel-good factor in that too.
Yeah.
But somehow the heaviness, the overwhelming issue of slavery is kind of offset by the quirky, weird,
for sure,
fun factor of table tennis.
Yep, the silly and the serious that we often talk about within the Pong. It's so true. So we saw back to back years, I think, where we're raising six figures, which is pretty extraordinary. And come COVID, we thought we kind of had to relook at everything. Are we going to? I mean, as you've just described, Age, the Pong is built on communities coming together in person. That's no longer able to happen, obviously, especially during 2020, during the height of the restrictions. So, we as a team together thought maybe we just take a year off, but we realized that that would drastically impact some of our partners, or all of our partners, but some rely on us more than others just because of their size. And so we knew that wasn't an option. So we obviously transferred the campaign online, and obviously some communities around Australia. Credit to you, Age, that the Pong is a national movement for the reason of you and your black Corolla going up and down East Coast and Adelaide and Perth. I love that snapshot. So obviously some communities were able to run, but safe to say 2020, we saw $350,000 raise, or just below that, which was an incredible result, but it was a lot of work. And I think we all felt quite tired afterwards. And I think for you, at the start of last year, Age, if I recall correctly, you were like, all right, the start of last year, start of 2021, you're like, yeah, I need some time out. So you had a couple of weeks, and then you're like, maybe I need a bit more time out. And so that obviously bled into having, a decent year off, which, was great that you were able to have that. So maybe walk us through, that break and kind of what that meant to you and some of the things that you kind of discovered in having that time off.
Yeah, look, I think the context for that break really is recognizing that I was pretty burnt out when the Pong started.
Right.
Coming out of a marriage ending,
Right.
and I'd started another organization from scratch for 8 years, and that had taken a lot of energy to get up and going and to build. And I guess, going to Thailand to volunteer all those years back was really about just a reset.
Yeah.
But then I was working in an incredibly stressful environment with exploitation happening on the doorstep, and seeing and experiencing different trauma that most people will never experience and see in their lives. So, and then kind of accidentally stumbling into starting another organization, which was the Pong. And as an introvert, starting organizations is probably not the best thing for introverts to do.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess kind of looking back, I've kind of done the Pong from a place of burnout, which is not something I recommend to anyone. But yeah, the start of last year, really, I guess I had to take it seriously. I recognized that something really seriously was wrong, and was opening the laptop to, do my work, and something inside me was just going, and got a diagnosis from my GP of chronic fatigue, and just recognized that what I've done over the last 20 years of work life has been fairly extreme, particularly for an introvert, and it made sense that something inside me was saying stop. And so thankfully, we had good leadership in place with the Pong now. It wasn't just a one-man show that all relied on me to, happen every year. And yeah, you guys enable me to take some time off, to take long service leave and so on. And yeah, that year was a real year where I could rest and recover and reflect. And like, I filled lots of journals and did lots of meditation and just some really good things that were healthy for me. But I also kind of took that time to figure out, I guess in reflecting, I realized that there were some things from the first half of my life that I didn't want to take into the second half of my life. And repeating burnout was one of those things. But I guess when you take time out from the busy, crazy hecticness of life, things start to bubble up to the surface that you recognize maybe it would be healthy for me to change that. Or maybe this thing that I've grown up with all of my life doesn't actually serve me that well. Maybe I need to let go of that. So it was really very much like turned into a, midlife reset. I wouldn't call it midlife crisis. I'd call it a midlife reset. And, I did stuff like looking at my why, my purpose, and creating a purpose statement. I did stuff around exploring what are the things that I really value. So actually defining, my core values, which I've done before many, many years ago, but it just really helped me to kind of get back to a place where I could see where I want to be over the next half of my life, the second half, and where I don't want to be. And put into place some things that will help me to actually get to where I want to be as impactful and effective and healthy as I can be.
For sure. No, thanks for sharing, Age. I get the next question that I have, you may have answered or alluded to some of these things already. The Pong has been an incredible journey, right? As I said at the start, 11 years ago, the Pong didn't exist. 11 years later, over $3 million raised, tens of thousands of people impacted, both here in Australia and obviously in Southeast Asia and South Asia, where the work is done, the front lines. If you had to distill, reflecting on that journey, if you had to distill it down to say one or two things that you've learnt, it could be anything. What immediately comes to mind for you?
Well, I've got 5. I hope that's okay. But I'll be quick.
No, I love
it. So there's some personal reflection, I guess. And part of that is the Pong's a weird thing. It's wacky, it's weird. No one would come up with such a thing if you asked someone to solve human trafficking or to fight it. No one would come up with what we came up with. And so I think the learning from that for me is authenticity. Be yourself. Yeah. And the Pong is the Pong because I went with a weird ass idea that kind of came to me from nowhere and tried it and it worked. Now, for someone else, it maybe wouldn't work because it wasn't authentic to them. They would tackle it in a completely different way. So I guess that's part of the learning is we can shape the world in ways that are unique to who we are. So if we learn to follow our gut, our intuition, or our spirit, or the spirit, if you're that way inclined, that's where we will have impact in the world. So that would be one. I think one of the other things personally is that sometimes your calling in life or your purpose, it will find you, and it might even seem like an accident or it's not like you necessarily sit down and figure out this is my purpose and this is what I'm going to do with my life. But sometimes it actually finds you. Yeah. But it usually finds you when you're doing something, you're actually taking action and trying something. And I think as I look back at all of my life, I think one of the learnings is that your purpose and your calling finds you when you're doing something brave.
That's uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, you're taking brave action and you're putting yourself out there, and it might be something that might not work and you might fall flat on your face, but it also might be what might be next for you.
And just on that age, I mean, where you found yourself 11 years ago, like if you were to ask 10 people on the street, 9 out of 10 or maybe 10 out of 10 would say that's the last thing I would do. Like I want the default response possibly is to do everything you can to make yourself more protected and to be maybe more insular, whereas you obviously did the opposite, and that was obviously the springboard to what the Pong is today. So anyway, that's just some reflection. No, it's really good.
Yeah, I think had I not gone and volunteered, I would have spiraled down. Like I was spiraling, so I knew I needed to do something.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So the third thing would be that this is a basic one, obvious one, but like when we do anything that's worthwhile or impactful, it typically just requires a whole lot of steady small steps of action over a long period of time. And without that, like, you can't avoid anything that's going to have an impact or be worthwhile. It just takes hard work. And that's, I'm not talking about just myself. I'm talking about our staff over the years, people that have run events, our partners and the work that they do. Like it's all just steady small steps every day to go, this is not right. I can do something about it. Here's what I'm going to do today. Basic kind of stuff. Two more. One is just the power of relationship and networks. So the Pong, I say this all the time, the Pong was and it is just an idea unless there's a group of people that get behind it and who believe in that idea, that vision, and they own it and they actually then add to it as they kind of act it out. And so, just seeing the power of trust and relationship and community and building a network, that's how a movement kind of gets formed.
Love it.
And it's so simple, like so simple. And that is the Pong. Like the Pong is really simple. Hey, friend, do you want to come play some table tennis and, help do something good in the world? Like it's that simple, but it only works because there's 1,000 people doing that. And then they invite the next people in and on it goes. So the last one would be just that what's the learning? The Pong works. And that sounds really simple and dumb too, but like, as I think about this upcoming trip to see our partners, and I think back to the first visit that I had to, say, Hard Places community in Cambodia, working with young men who were being exploited in the massage parlors in Phnom Penh. And, I remember the first trip that I took to see their work. They had 5 young guys in there, kind of around late teens, early 20s, who were working in their very first business, which was a tuk-tuk tour guide service. And that business didn't last. It only kind of lasted a year or two, but 4 of the 5 of those guys, this is about 8 years ago, 4 out of 5 of those guys are now leading or running businesses.
Amazing.
That, are training up the next generation of young guys behind them. And we're going to see a couple of businesses that we've never seen in person because over COVID things changed and they've pivoted. But some of their long-term dreams they're being enacted right now. And so, like this weird ass thing that we do, the Pong, it works. Like it has resulted in people's lives being changed, who are now changing other people's lives. And that is the result of the movement.
Mm.
So if you're not encouraged Pong movement, then I don't know what will encourage you to keep going.
No, I love it, Age. That's awesome. And clearly I gave Age a slight heads up on that question. I love the 5-prong answer there. And you're right. I think the beautiful thing personally that I love about the Pong is that, yeah, it's the movement itself is represented by 1,000 small relationships of people deciding to do something, having a bit of fun, and by virtue of doing that, creating huge waves of impact. I mean, that's the reality, right? Like our average donation year on year is like $80, I think. We don't have these massive, big high net worth people donating money. It's lots of small donations that creates incredible impact. And the impact is real, guys. Like that was just a very small slice of what's happening right now. The long-term stuff that Age pointed to with, the boys, the men in Phnom Penh, like it's real. And yeah, it's very special that as collectively as a Pong movement, we can be a part of the solution of seeing, justice in this issue. So
yeah,
thanks so much for
I'd
sharing.
add to that even just to say that those small steps that people take in the movement, whether they are our partners working over those 8 years with those 4 or 5 guys, like that is hard work. That's long term. But it also comes off the back of Pongers stepping in and going, yeah, I'm going to participate again. Yeah, I'm going to ask someone to play.
For sure.
But it compounds.
Yes.
Because as those guys run those businesses now, there's the next generation of guys that come through, and then they run businesses, and it just, so the longer this goes, like the longer that you, David, and Matt and others in the movement can continue to see the Pong grow, the bigger the impact, the bigger the legacy that occurs. It compounds, and that's where we're going to see the real powerful stuff happen.
We talk about the ripple effect, don't we? And that's exactly what you're speaking to. And we'll never truly know or fully appreciate exactly what the total impact will be. But I think it's only going to be encouraging when you think about, when your mind casts to that reality, the reality of the fact that, yes, these guys are now impacting the next, and then those guys will impact the next. And yeah, it's pretty special. And it's a privilege, right? Like, it's a privilege that we can partner in the way and do something so simple. Sure, it might be a sacrifice to play Pong for, some guys do it the full 24 hours, which is absolutely nuts. But when you think about it, it's just a small thing that we can do to affect real meaningful change. I love it, mate. So what's next for you? Obviously, I'd love to get some context to your Age Rowse official above your head there. Obviously, you're probably still working it out, but yeah, give us some context as to what's after the trip. What is ahead for you after the trip to the region?
You got there in the end.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Apologies for the promo above my head.
Apologize.
That's not my usual way, of course. It took me a little bit of encouragement to actually put there. Look, I am figuring things out still. And, as I share about what I've learned with the Pong, I'm like asking myself in the back of my head, why are you finishing? But a few people have asked me that question, like, when this is something that you're clearly still passionate about, like you want people to be freed and to not be enslaved in the world. And I guess my response more and more as I think about what I am planning to do next is that in one sense, nothing changes, because I still want to help people find freedom in their life. That is what I've done over the course of my life. All of the work stuff that I've done, and work, ministry, career, whatever you want to call it, has been about helping people find freedom and get free from things that keep them stuck or lost or keep them from being fully who they're meant to be.
Sure.
So, I want to do more of that. And I'll still remain involved in the direct fight against slavery, people who are physically enslaved, like those that our partners work with. I'll find ways to remain involved in that, because once you're involved in this stuff, you can never not be involved.
Yeah,
I
100%.
don't see how that can happen anyway.
Mm.
But I think this next chapter for me will be much more focused on, working more directly with people in, everyday life here in Australia, perhaps other parts of the world, who really do feel stuck or lost or not sure what their purpose is, or feel like there are things that are holding them back from being who they're meant to be, being impactful, making a difference in the world, and just living lives that have that real, I guess, purpose. The three kind of things that I feel like will be central to what I do working with people, as a coach and as a communicator, will be around helping people to live lives that are authentic, lives that are really present, because I think our world is like, we're so distracted. Our world makes it really hard for us to just be focused on what is right in front of us in this moment, and to be fully there. I think that's one of the massive challenges for our time. And the third thing is to live lives that are brave. Because so often we get stuck in cycles of thinking and behavior and attitudes that keep us small, and that keep us from actually doing things that are bigger, that will require us to be vulnerable, that will require us to potentially look stupid, to potentially fail. But small lives are not what we're made for. And so I think, for me, coaching will be a significant part of that. Coaching and communication. So I want to work with people one-on-one who want to be moving forward in their lives. But I also want to be doing some communication to groups of people, whether that be live events or online stuff, or kind of online course kind of stuff. So just using my life experience, using the hard stuff of life that I've worked through over many years.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You have a
others.
rich journey to draw from, mate.
Mate, I have spectacularly failed at many things in life, but for some reason, they have been the things that have brought the most hope and the most growth and the most blessing to other people. It's been when I share about that stuff. Earlier this year, I shared some of my journey around sexuality and the struggle that has been over the course of my life. And that has opened up so many conversations over the last 6 months with people who weren't necessarily sharing similar stuff, but they were opening up about the biggest, hardest things in their lives that they've grappled with over decades. And that is a great privilege, to be able to journey with people on their hardest stuff, and to bring some encouragement and hope, and just be someone that sits and listens and gets it. And
because some people just don't have that, as in access to people that just sit and listen, right?
Or maybe they do, but they can't share that deepest. Some of the most shameful kind of stuff is usually the stuff that we don't feel like we can talk about to anyone.
Sure. Yeah.
So
So how can people engage with you, Age?
Well, the Age Rowse official is a way to do that. You can just search for my personal Facebook and Instagram too. It's just Age Rowse without the official. But that's a little bit more my kind of personal network. But if you connect with those social media accounts, you'll hear of what I do next as I figure that out and start to put those things into action. But I guess, I've tried to be fairly focused on finishing well with the Pong. So I'm trying not to get too far into that headspace. But the coming months you'll see some movement there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Age, thanks so much for sharing today with us. It's been a real privilege. Obviously, I've heard bits and pieces of it, but was able to learn more today personally, and obviously for our movement to be able to hear your story and to understand what's next for you. Looking forward to seeing the coaching and whatever else, the further engagement with the issue. I mean, you're not going anywhere. You're still going to be a very close friend of the Pong, and would love to have you back on future Pongcasts and whatever else. And if you're in the region at the same time we are, obviously, touching base in that way. But yeah, just want to say thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your journey with us.
Yeah, well, I guess if I could just say to the movement as a whole, it's been such a great privilege to lead this part of the journey. And, I'm excited about the next chapter for the Pong, as well as being excited about the next chapter for me.
Yeah.
But I will be watching really closely, and look forward to whatever new flavor that you bring to the Pong, David, too, as that kind of intentional leader moving forwards. I just feel it's a great relief and a great blessing to me to know that the Pong is in good hands moving forward. And not just with you, but with, event organizers and communities. Absolutely. Over many, many years who, me finishing is not going to make one iota of difference to their involvement. They're rusted on and, going to keep going for it. And that was always the hope, that this is not just about my idea or my thing. It's like, this is the Pong. And may it be amazing and incredible moving forwards. May it do far more than, may you guys achieve far more than what we've achieved with me as a leader. I just hope you keep kicking slavery's ass and may it be even more beautiful in 10 years' time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, thank you for those kind words, for what you said about me. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the Pong moving forward as well. And I guess maybe that's a good point to segue. Hey, if you haven't registered for this year's campaign yet, get registered. Our goal is a tentative, conservative 400,000. We're hoping to absolutely smash that. But yeah, obviously, if Age's story of how one life can create impact, if that didn't move you, then I'm not sure what will. So don't despise small beginnings. Hey, like if you're in a small community and you ran your first event last year and it wasn't all that big, and you're wondering, oh, should I go again? Absolutely, give it a crack. Or maybe you haven't taken the dive yet, or maybe you're part of a community that's heard about the Pong, you haven't been involved. I really want to encourage you, whatever participation looks like for you. Get involved, get in touch with us. We would love for you to be a part of this year's campaign and the future. Hey, we're not going anywhere, and we're super excited. We've got a few things that we're going to, explore and dive deeper on later this year as campaign really ramps up. So keep a lookout for that. But I think that's a wrap, Age. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Awesome.